How to overcome inner criticism and boost your mental health? Mario was a man in his mid-30s, with a life full of challenges and inner contradictions. Since he was young, he had learned to be harsh with himself, and this trait followed him into adulthood. In his job, he was always demanding, trying to surpass the expectations of every employer he worked for. In his personal life, he was filled with doubts and often questioned his choices, believing that he could always do better, and be more successful. The inner critic was the voice that constantly told him he wasn't good enough, that he could achieve more, become better, and more worthy. Every failure made him feel weaker, while his small victories seemed insignificant and temporary. While he was generally satisfied with the outcomes he achieved, his inner voice never allowed him to relax. One evening, Mario met Eleni, an old friend, at a cafe. Eleni was a woman who had always had a positive influence on him. Without ever directly offering advice, she simply had a sense of balance and calm that Mario found impressive. She always seemed at peace with life, something that Mario felt was missing from his own existence. "You seem troubled," Eleni said as they sat down at the table. "What's on your mind?" Mario, as usual, hesitated to open up, but this time, something inside him pushed him to share his feelings. He began to talk about the sense of failure that followed him, the constant criticism he placed on himself, and the doubts he had about his future. Eleni listened carefully, and after he finished, she spoke in a calm but firm tone. "The inner criticism you're placing on yourself isn't something that will help you grow. On the contrary, it limits you and makes you lose the joy of success when it comes. Every time you feel like you're not good enough, just remember that we all have our limits, and acknowledging those limits allows us to achieve something more authentic and personal." Eleni explained to him how constant inner criticism could lead to a vicious cycle where every attempt at self-improvement becomes a form of pressure rather than a positive challenge. She suggested that Mario start focusing on the small successes and celebrating them, rather than allowing himself to focus on what he didn't do well. Instead of always trying to be perfect, he needed to accept human imperfection and learn from his mistakes without letting the inner voice overwhelm him. At first, Mario struggled to accept this new perspective. He had learned to be strict with himself, and the idea of forgiving himself and accepting his flaws seemed foreign and strange. However, Eleni encouraged him to take small steps. She suggested that he keep a journal where he could write down the positive moments of his day, even if they were small. It was a challenge to find the positive in the midst of struggles. Within a few weeks, Mario began to notice a change in the way he viewed himself. His successes, whether small or large, started to have more value, while his mistakes didn't make him feel worthless. Instead, he began to see them as opportunities for learning. His inner voice didn't disappear, but he now approached it with a more positive outlook. Accepting and forgiving himself made him feel stronger and more ready to face the challenges of life with greater confidence. The lesson from today's story with Mario is that constant inner criticism can limit us and prevent us from living authentically. Accepting our flaws and celebrating small successes is the key to mental well-being and personal growth.